We do this before every single election, no matter how big or small, to show the accuracy of the machines. There's always some questions, and we encourage those. I'm gonna take a little bit of a back seat today, especially more than normal, because I'm on the ballot, so I want to watch as an observer with most of you. Julie's gonna run the show today with Steve, and if there's any questions, please ask. We'll just leave it at that. Go for it, Julie.
Thanks. So let's talk a little bit about why we're here and why we do what we do. The machines have to be reprogrammed for every single election. So with that means testing, logistics testings, accuracy testings. Are the machines calibrated correctly? So Steve and I, our IT gentlemen, we have already ran several test ballots through these machines prior to doing it publicly. We mark a test deck. In some bigger elections, the state will mark a test deck, and then our election systems and software marks a test deck. So what we're doing here today is making sure that this is what we call the control group. These are the results of the test deck. What we want to do is run these ballots through these machines, all three of them, and then we're going to have our volunteers verify that the results of this control group match identically the results of what comes off these machines. I'm going to have Steve go ahead and start while I talk a little bit about the machines, because it's 518 ballots and a lot of candidates and a lot of races, so it's going to take a little bit of time for you guys to go through that for each machine. Yeah, thank you. We're going to do a zero report first so that everybody knows that there's zero results in those machines. So we're starting with a clean slate.
Did you say a test deck?
Test deck, yeah, or test ballots. We call them test decks, like a deck of cards, kind of. So let's talk a little bit about how these machines are designed and built. There's absolutely nothing in these machines that can communicate with the outside world. They can't transmit, they can't receive. So the only thing that we can have to communicate is a proprietary media stick that's encrypted. If someone were to go to Staples and buy a media stick, it would not read in this machine, probably wouldn't even fit in the machine. Those sticks are about $250 a piece, and we have one for every precinct. Our ADA compliant voting machine, which is sitting right there, for our visually impaired adults to vote independently, that is just a marking device. It doesn't communicate. You can't push a button and your ballot, your vote gets shipped off to the courthouse fiber optically or whatever. It doesn't have that capability. So you couldn't sit outside and try to log into this machine or hack it in any way, because it literally does not have the components in it to have that ability to be hacked. So the wall that we plug this into there's no networking cables and no phone lines in this wall. There's also no Wi-Fi in this office. We are all hardwired in. Just for that reason, even though they can't be hacked, it's also a perception that we are being as safe as we possibly can with these machines. Before every election, oh, thanks. So the machine number letter is right here. So this is machine A. So if you guys want to just look at it and make sure that machine A, B, and C have zero results in them. And then if you would all just initial and date the page, just the front page, that would be great for my records. So just to give you an example, I'll have to talk a little louder with the machine running, but to give you an example of when we moved to these new machines, which are digital, we moved from a laser technology that's just looking for a darkened oval on a ballot to a digital machine. So this machine is also saving digital copies of these ballots as they run through. So not only do we keep a hard copy paper ballot always that you can look at with the human eye, we also have digital copies of those ballots in this machine as a backup. If our vault ever went on fire, we'd be able to pull digital images off of these machines. So before we went to this, we wanted to move to a newer system and upgrade. Our older machines were 11, 12 years old when I first started doing this. So we wanted to upgrade. They're just as accurate as the old machines, but they're more efficient. The old machines had one hopper. This has three, so the machine doesn't stop. Every time a write-in would happen or a blank ballot comes through, the entire machine would stop. So then we'd have to pull it out, figure out where it needs to go, and then start the machine again. So these are more efficient, but just as accurate. When we rolled these out in a little tiny election down. It was South County. I think it was the Downey Swan Lake Highway District, I think, is the first time we used these machines. So when we look at our voter database, and what we do to keep it clean and maintain that is different from what we do with the machines. But the voter database does not communicate with this kind of technology. So when we wand in voter history into the voter database, we want to be able to print a report that says how many people voted in that election. Then we want to go to our machines and say, how many ballots did we count on that machine? Two different technologies that do not communicate. In that particular election, we had 512 people sign the poll book, 512 people off of our voter database printed a report, 512 ballots counted in these machines. That's about the best checks and balances that you can get. And after every election, we do that. We look at how many voters signed the poll book. Did we get the correct voter history in our system? Print a precinct report. Did we count that many ballots, that signatures in the book off of these machines? Before every election, I have to submit what's called a ballot protocol or security, an early walk-in security plan to the Secretary of State's office. If it's not approved, they tell me what I need to change to make it more secure. So our vaults are on either end of this building. We have a ballot vault here and a machine vault back here. And my security plan, our security plan, is based on a double door locking system with limited access. So that door is locked every night, and that door back there is locked every night, and the vault doors inside those rooms are locked every night. And there's only 2 people that have access to all 4 of those doors. Jason doesn't even have keys to get in these doors because he's on the ballot sometimes. He can't be just wandering in and out of here randomly. Although he still does. Brandy and I. Let's see. We also, on election day, there's a camera on right here. It's not on right now. Don't panic. There's a camera right here. There's a camera right there. And there's a 24-hour surveillance on our ballots. There's also a 24-hour surveillance on our drop box outside. So this ballot vault camera is on all the time. And on election day, we'll turn this one on and that one on. And then we'll set up right here to open absentee ballots with volunteers. And then all of those get back into the vault, get on lockdown. And then we'll live stream all day election day. And then we do central count right here too. It's set up a lot like this. We're certifying 3 machines today, but we're only going to use 2. In the event one decides it wants to jam, we'll put it away and bring the 3rd one out, but we'll certify all 3 today. So we have different stations on election night during the count. But if anyone ever wants to log into Bannock County, what's it called, Steve? Bannock County Elections? Bannock County Count Central?
BannockCounty.us is the website.
Okay. So if you ever want to know what we're doing on election night, log into that and watch us. It's actually a pretty interesting process. And at any time, if anybody wants a tour of this office or wants to talk a little more in depth about what we do every day to safeguard the vote, happy to do that with anybody anytime. So are there any questions about the machines?
Do you have a margin of error that's acceptable?
I read once somewhere that a 3% error in the elections office was acceptable nationwide. Disagree with that 100%. Our margin of error for the last 6 or 7 years has been 0.01%, 0.001% in some elections. We try to keep that it's nice to have a 0 error, right? But I think 3%, you look at some of the races, and you have a 3% difference in who won. So 3% is way too high as far as I'm concerned. So, and those, when we talk about errors, when I'm looking at how we did in early voting or what's happening on election night and stuff, I'll take the voter turnout and divide it by whatever error we had. And a lot of times, sometimes it's accidentally issuing the wrong ballot at the counter, but that happens maybe once or twice. But everything that we do as far as the checks and balance after the fact, we know exactly where we're at any given stage in the game. Do you want to talk a little bit about what we do to keep our voter database clean? There's a lot of talk in other states about dead people voting and all of that. Okay, so we get what's called a death list. We probably could find a nicer way to say that, but it's a vital statistics death list from the state once every 2 weeks, sometimes once a week. We're also attached to all of the funeral homes in town. And so every time somebody passes away in the state, we get notified and we take them out of our system. We get corrections. When somebody commits a felony, we get notified, take them out of our state. There's a Crosscheck, it's called. It's nationwide, and it's called the Nationwide Crosscheck, I think. There's only 26 states. The last I heard, there was only 26 states that participated in it. And I think there's probably more now. But when somebody moves out of Idaho, say they move to Arizona, Arizona's Secretary of State lets our Secretary of State know that they now belong to Arizona, and then we can take them out of our system. If somebody from Arizona moves here, Arizona lets, well, the other way around. The Secretary of States of those states will let the other states know where everybody is, so we can keep we don't have people sitting in there that are not voting and taking up space who actually aren't eligible to vote in Idaho because they've moved. Because it's a statewide maintained database, if somebody moves from Jerome County to Bannock County, it automatically, as soon as they register to vote with us, as soon as we enter that card, it automatically pulls that voter from Jerome County and puts them in our county. In the presidential in 2020, we registered 6,600 people to vote on Election Day. And then after every general election, we do what's called a purge. We might be able to find a better word for that, too. We'll take out, you have to vote at least once every 4 years in any election. Just once every 4 years. If you don't, you get purged from our system in January after every general election. So we registered to vote 6,600 people in November of 2020. In January of 2021, we purged 5,800. So that's also how we keep our system clean, so we don't have people in our system that aren't eligible to vote on issues in Bannock County.
So who makes that decision on when purging should occur?
Our state legislators. Almost everything that we do, there's a calendar on that wall. You're welcome to take a look at it. Our Secretary of State helps our legislators write law, election law, and that's a guide for us. I have a book. It's not easy to read, but because it's law, but that's what we follow. Everything in here, every deadline that we have, the only thing that's ours and ours alone would be how we want to set up our central count, or where we house, what's our ballot security, and then every day taking those steps to maintain that security and that integrity and that honesty and transparency, 100% transparency. Sure. So the rule is where you have your homeowner's exemption is where you're registered to vote.
That just passed, right?
We've been doing that for a while. There's been a lot of legislation in Boise that didn't pass. Some of it's not great. Some of it's good. We can always be better, right? Excuse me. What else? Any questions? I think that's all I had. We also rely heavily on the public to help us be aware of people that have moved or are deceased. And precinct committeemen, they'll go door to door sometimes and helps us. So the retention rate on anything elections related, the longest retention rate is 5 years. So voter registration cards of people that we've pulled out. Unvoted ballots actually are only 90 days, but we keep everything related to the election in one section. They have to be on lockdown in our vault until the data recount comes and goes. And the clock starts to tick the day that I canvass the votes with the commissioners. 20 days after that date, we can take everything over and lock them into a cage down in the basement of the annex, but they have to remain here in that event. The state's also doing what's called a post-election audit. So they're going to do a bingo basket, and we have 57 precincts, and they're going to do the audit by precinct through the whole state. So we'll have 57 balls in the basket, Ada County 160 balls in the basket. So the chances of Bannock County, Kootenai County, Canyon County, and Ada County getting selected to do a post-election audit is greater than anybody else. Cherie over in Power County has 6 precincts. She may never get an audit, but our thinking along this is we want to be audited. We want people to be here to listen to this. We want watchers. We want that audit so that we can prove to our public the machine counted 500 ballots in that precinct. There's 500 ballots right here. Let's see what the results are off the machine. Let's look at it with the human eye, and that's what these audits are going to be. No more than 3 precincts for I think statewide. So we could do 1 or 2 precincts, and then they'll have an audit team from the state will come in, and they're just going to check one race. They're going to pick a ballot, a party style, and one race, and then they're going to count that whole thing by hand. And because I have so much faith in these machines, I'm going to say 100% they're going to get the same amount with their eyes that the machine counted. I would actually venture a guess that there would be more human error involved in that than the machine.
In fact, so last year, the Secretary of State's office did do these post-election audits in a couple of counties, and they were worried right at first because the hand count didn't come out the same, so they hand counted again. And the machines are more accurate than a hand count. It takes a lot more time to do the hand count, and there's human error involved to the point that it's much better to do it on a machine.
So the first election Brandy and I ever did was in 2014. It was a primary. And we ran out of ballots because I didn't know what I was doing. Well, let's backtrack that a little bit. That could happen again. I'm not sure. But anyway, you learn from every election is an opportunity to be better. That's what I always say. But so we had to do a hand count on election night on photocopied ballots. So what happens then when that hand count is done, because we just didn't have enough ballots to run through the machines, and that's never where you want to be. The hand count, Steve has to enter it into the elections reporting management system. So when it goes up on the website, it's 100% accurate. Well, there was a little bit variation. So because of that, we got called a recount on us for a particular referendum that was on for the city of Pocatello. And when we got done doing that count, it was 10 votes off, which is the most. We've been through 3 recounts successfully, and 10 votes was the largest one that we were ever off. And it was all in that hand count of those photocopied ballots that night, not the machine. And it didn't flip at all. There was a 98 vote difference, so those 10 didn't have an effect on the election. But
I'm sure you've said this, but how long have you had these machines?
so we got these in 2017. The first machines were called M650s, and they were bought in 2006, I think. So it was time. I'll just say it was time. So from each machine, you know what I should do, because this is going to take some time with all these candidates, and you have to do a little bit of math, but I'll show you. Math is hard. Okay, so if you wanted to do them by machine, because all the machines are going to say the same thing, but that's up to you guys totally. I'm going to make a photocopy of this control group so you both have a copy, and that might expedite a little bit. Thank you. So when you're looking at these numbers, these overs and unders you have to add to this total. So you're going to see on the report from the control group is going to say, what's that, 114, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. It'll say 121. But they're all, these over and unders are a little, so does everybody know what an over and an under are? So if somebody votes for 2 candidates in the same race, that's called an over and neither count. If they leave a race blank, that's called an under. And so this control group throws a little bit of that in there so we can make sure that everything is functioning. On election night, we have what's called a resolution table. And so we have a lot of voters that'll vote at home, and they'll circle the candidate instead of fill in the oval. And so we program our machines to watch for blanks. So it'll kick a blank out to the resolution table, or because a write-in needs to be actually seen with the naked eye, it'll kick a write-in only in the positions where there's a certified write-in that is signed up. We'll kick it into here. It'll go to a write-in table and a resolution table. And so our voters that do a check mark or an X in the oval, or they'll circle the candidate, we have volunteers sitting on a resolution table that will look at voter intent, remark a clean ballot the proper way, and then we'll run those back through the machine at the end of the night and turn off the sort for blanks. Every piece of equipment that we use in the state of Idaho has to be certified by the Secretary of State. Did I talk about this yet? Okay. So that means that when they come up with new machines, they take them to the state, and the state has to run 1.5 million ballots through one machine with 0 error before any county in the state of Idaho can use those machines. And right now, there's only 2 software companies for elections related equipment certified in the state of Idaho: Hart Voting Systems, boo, and Election Systems and Software. Right now, yeah, boo. 44 counties in the state, 4 use Hart, and the rest of us use Election Systems and Software. They are reputable, and their whole motto, everything that you see on the wall, they're so proud of what they do. We came back and we're like, oh my gosh, we could paint I voted stickers somewhere in a corner. They had a whole corner of one wall that was just nothing but different kinds of I voted stickers. And just their pride in what they do is so contagious that I just have no doubt that they're one of the best companies on the planet. And I don't even work for them. And I'm not being paid by them. So the last thing that we're going to do, I'll just talk about this while you're still, oh, you guys are done? You guys are still going? Okay, I'm going to talk about it anyway. So if I could have the volunteers sign this certification sheet when you're done. I'm going to seal the back of these machines with these seals. And then on election night, we're going to have volunteers come in and verify that these seal numbers that you verified today are the same seal numbers on election night. So we know that there's no tampering has gone on. And as soon as we're done here and we shut these machines down and you guys document these seal numbers, those machines go right back into the vault. Look good? Yep. Perfect.
I still have to look at the watch.
And I bet you're not even retired.
So then we'll have League and you and Donna will sign there. Really appreciate you guys being here. Thanks for coming. We're just signing up and the results match, and so we are set. Thank you.